Hi everyone, I would like to welcome you to the first ever podcast, the Global Nomads podcast. Today we have Jan Eden. Although Jan is not an immigrant herself, but her career, her being different or her being an expert of thinking differently has led us to a conversation where she was the first person I've talked to about starting this podcast. We talked with her about the reasons for this podcast, the positiveness it will bring. And Jan, she had a huge career. She was in business for 28 years. A couple of weeks ago, we celebrated her and her impact to the community. We had about 150 people in the room just being there to celebrate Jan's impact. And Jan has a lot of impacts in Calgary, in the community. She has talked to many immigrants. She has worked with many people, helped them through their journey. And it's a huge pleasure to welcome her today to start a conversation. So, Jan, thank you. Welcome. And again, I really appreciate you being the first ever person on this podcast and having this conversation.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Like I said earlier, you were the first person I came to discuss this podcast. Maybe outside my wife. Maybe my wife was a bit earlier, which is fair. But when we chatted, you were very positive about it. Mm-hmm. You were very supportive about it. And I wanted to ask why you were supportive and what made you think that this is a good idea.
Well, when you first brought it to my attention, I see it as a bridge. You know, that the people you interview and the topics that you're going to share will bridge, the new immigrants and families of immigrants to Calgary and to the Canadian culture. And I feel that, we have so much to offer here. Calgary is a very different city than most cities. You'll probably agree. There is this aura of generosity and welcoming and helping. People go out of their way to help people. And I think the podcast will bring it together even more, the community.
That's a very good point. Thank you, Jan. And you mentioned bridge. Why is it important, in your opinion, for such a bridge to exist in the first place?
Well, I think people have biases. Mm-hmm. They don't understand. I think one of our greatest challenges today across the board is ignorance. And it's like a disease. And we don't take time to, learn about other people. We don't appreciate their cultures. We only see their culture as different or they're different. And they can't see how they fit into the culture that the person looking at their culture, can't see them fitting into their culture. So I think this podcast will break down some ignorance, but also, the people that I've met, that have come to Canada, they're unbelievable, including yourself, Samir. Like there's so much wisdom that immigrants bring. I think diversity in culture only makes us better. We add value from other people's culture.
That's very well said. I do agree with that point. There's so much we can learn from each other if we're willing and being open to that. Mm-hmm. If we're closed and we're not willing to learn something that is different, then how can we evolve as a species in general? Dear friends, I would like to take a quick pause right now to say thank you to Sergey from New West Video for helping out with all of our visuals today. And if you want to find out more, there's a link below. And I would also like to say thank you to Angelica for helping with all the social media marketing. And guess what? There's also a link below to find out more. And also, one favor from you. Please like and subscribe. And share the video with your friends and family. Helping newcomers is incredibly impactful. Like myself, when you come to a new country, you don't know anyone. And it's hard not just to, build a network, but even find people who you can relate with. Because, there's things like sense of humor, for example. Mm-hmm. My sense of humor may be different to someone that's from a different culture. It might be offensive. It might be not understood in the right way. So there's always those things. But I want to learn about finding your voice. So you've met with a lot of people. You had met people with different cultural backgrounds from all over the world, and you helped them find their voice. So can you talk about that a little bit, about finding your voice, finding yourself in a new environment?
Well, I think first of all, you have to go out and seek others. If you just stay at home or stay in your community and you don't, explore, and it's effort. It takes effort to be included, to be wanted when you come to a new place. Like whether you're coming from Europe or Russia or Africa, even if you come from Toronto and you come to Calgary, I mean, it's different. We do things differently. There's a lot of similarities. Yeah, we speak English, and we probably work in the similar companies, but at the same time, the city is different. How we do things here is different, and so there's an adjustment for everyone. So if you come from a different country and you're learning the language, which is very challenging, but it's really to make the effort to make friends, because if you are expecting people to come to you, they don't know you're there. So you have to be visible. And one thing you've done, Samir, is you've literally been, from the day you arrived, you've built a network. Like you're kind of the poster child for building a network coming in from another country. Plus you speak very good English, so that helps you. So there's some responsibility in that, to be seen and to, find your voice. And I think a lot of times people are self-conscious because they don't know how they can fit. Mm-hmm. And so they stick to themselves. They don't want to step out of what they're familiar with. And I think that's one of the challenges with immigrants in Canada. They never come out of their sector. And so we're missing out. The people that have been here longer, they miss out on learning about them and learning about their culture. And we're curious, and sometimes because they're not friendly or they're not wanting to make friends, different friends, that's where biases are formed.
100%. If you don't step out your shell, how are you going to know?
Yeah.
And unless you say how others are going to know about you. Which brings it to the point about visibility. So if a person comes and doesn't know how to network, doesn't know how to make themselves visible, because again, different cultures, different things. Mm-hmm. Some cultures may find that offensive, so it's a new adjustment for them to make themselves visible. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, for example, I was always told that talking positively about yourself is not a good thing because you have to be humble.
Yeah.
Whereas I find now you're your own best person to advertise yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can you break that stigma? How should a person that doesn't know approach becoming visible?
Yeah, it's a challenge. We have sales plans, marketing plans, business plans, but we don't have a visibility plan. And it's so important. Everybody needs a visibility plan. And what that means, it's not for the ego to rise above or I'm better than you. It's really a consciousness. And I think visibility starts by being kind. I think it's, simple as opening a door at a shopping mall. In Canada, there's certain things Canadians do naturally. We have a reputation for being too polite. And sometimes it's annoying, saying thank you, sorry. But I think that's our culture. I think we're being considerate. Mm-hmm. So when new people come to the city, and to Canada, it's really paying attention. It's paying attention to how the environment works. Yep. Notice things that way. And then, for the person to be visible, besides for what they look like, if they have a job, they have to get involved within their company. One way that I found is for a lot of immigrants that they can break out of their shell is joining Toastmasters.
Oh,
Toastmasters is a phenomenal organization that actually helps you for others to hear your voice, to own your voice, because it teaches you how to public speak. They have contests. It's an organization that's around the world. But I know a lot of immigrants are, they go there on their lunch hour from companies when they work downtown. There's different groups all over the city. But what it does is builds community right away. Now, the people in those little groups start to introduce them to other people. So that would be a source of networking for them.
that's a very good point. And in terms of that, I'll do a little segue for introductions. So sometimes it may feel uncomfortable asking someone for an introduction. And do you think that's a valid thing to do? Or how would you go about asking for those introductions? Or what would your suggestion would be to some of the newcomers?
Well, newcomers and people who want to grow their business, it's pretty standard. First of all, you have to know who you want to know. Okay. So it's not as simple as, I think the randomness about going to an event, inevitably you're going to meet somebody in an event, if that's your intention. But I think if you want to be really strategic about it, first of all, maybe you're looking for a job. Maybe you're looking for a new dentist or a doctor. So it's really having clarity around what you're looking for so that you have something to have a conversation about. So if you don't want to talk about yourself, you talk about what you need. And I can tell you, I guarantee you, the people that you talk to will immediately, jump in and help to support you in what you need. So that's what I would recommend.
Especially in a city like Calgary.
Yeah.
I love Calgary for one of the reasons. There are many reasons, and one of them is the community here. People are very supportive. When I came, like all immigrants, had only my cousin that I knew.
Yeah.
But slowly, because people were willing to have a conversation, people were willing to introduce me to other people, just because they thought that I could value that conversation. I was able to grow my network. And that's how we met each other as well, through those kind of conversations.
Through a referral.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one thing I also want to say is, for people who are listening to us, is that when some people go to networking events, one thing I see is that they're afraid to step out of their shell.
Yeah.
They go, they maybe see one person that they know, and they spend their entire night with that person.
Yes.
But that's not the point of networking events. It's about how many new people you're able to meet, and how many people you remember after the event, and how many new people remember you after the event as well. Do you have an impact?
Yeah. Well, I have a process that I, have, had the privilege of working with over 1,000 people in my career. And I'm just one person. I'm the product. So I had to get over myself and be, first of all, generous. So one of the things that I do is, before I go to any networking event, I visualize myself in the room, and I see myself entering into the room. So how do you want to enter the room? So you enter the room with intention. First of all, I'd like to meet someone new. So we don't know who that person will be, but when we have that intention, we come in. So when we meet someone new, because, everyone, whether you're an immigrant or not, I see people in companies. They go to networking events and they hang out with people that they know. It is a challenge to break through. But the interesting thing, unless you meet new people, you will not grow into the community. It's impossible, because you'll always stay inside, the insulation of what you know. And in order to grow, we have to step out. So knowing that you have this intention, you always compliment. So you look for someone in the room that maybe they have, a really nice shirt or a dress, or something that they're wearing from another country, and create curiosity. Everyone wants to be valued. If you come in and value them with sincerity, right away they want to know you. You're not coming in to talk about yourself. You're just coming in to be kind and generous. And immediately you'll strike up a conversation. There'll be engagement. And then once you get that engagement, you get their information. You get their contact information. And then it's your responsibility to follow up. One of the biggest challenges, even in my events, and I curate the events. I actually sit people beside each other that I know they need to meet each other to, cut to the chase so they don't have to be wandering around trying to figure it out. And what astounds me is they don't follow up. And it's in the following up that moves the needle. That's what creates a momentum, a movement in the networking world, in the developing a group of people that you want to hang out with. And so the following up is a responsibility of the person coming into the room. And we wait for someone else to follow up. They won't. They didn't take my course on how to network. And so then you're continuing the conversation. I always say to people, as soon as you start the conversation, you have the responsibility to continue it. So you find ways to continue the conversation. One of them is to go on Facebook or LinkedIn to find out information about them. So you're constantly, nurturing and then inviting them to something, or maybe a cultural event. Come, we're having, Puerto Rican days, this summer, this weekend. There's always some international event going on in the summer. So you would, whatever cultural event that speaks to you, invite them, bring them into your culture, and introduce them to other people, in the culture, because that will help them to break that mold too.
That's a very good point. And I'd like to summarize in 3 points. So you have to have intention. You come in, you found an interesting person, you build curiosity with them, you compliment them without being creepy. And then you follow up with them. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. Following up is so important and so underrated. I find it amusing how many people don't follow up after the conversation that they had. Even the smallest adding a new person to your LinkedIn profile or connecting with them, as small as that, should be at least the next step after having their business card.
Yeah, 100%. And you're in control. Yep. What people don't realize, they're waiting. People say, "Oh, gee, I went to this event and I met a lot of great people. I gave them my card, but I haven't heard from them." Well, yeah, because you got to take responsibility, and it's honoring that person. If you've spent time with them, we have a responsibility to them. If that's what we're seeking, if we're seeking to build a network, we have to take control of that.
Exactly. But let's bring it back to you. You are this amazing connector. And honestly, you mentioned that, you curate your events, having people sit. I don't know how you find the time, knowing, first of all, everyone and making sure that, this is the person that person should meet. Because every time I go to your events, I meet amazing people. And because you sit me next to them, it's amazing how you curate that. But what made you realize, what experience did you have in life that you said, "Oh God, I am built for this. This is my purpose. I'm a connector in the world"?
I think it started with my family. I've always been a generous person. I've always looked out for others, not excluding myself. But I'll give you an example with my brother. I was in fashion when I was a teenager in Toronto, and there was a high-end spa that I was doing a fashion event at. And I walk into this beautiful place, high-end, and I see on the bulletin board they're looking for a lifeguard. And I said, "Oh, that's perfect for my brother." So I phone my brother up, and I say, "Jack, you got to get down here right away. They're looking for a lifeguard, and you're perfect for the job." And there's deep silence at the end of the phone. He says, "But I can't swim." And I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. The pool's only 5 feet deep and you're 5'9", and I know you could save somebody if they're drowning. And the bonus is that you can learn to swim, get paid, and then also the girls, you won't believe how beautiful the girls are here." So he came down in a jiffy and they hired him on the spot.
That's amazing. The best way to encourage a young adult, right? You hit all the points there.
So, and I've just been that person. So I've been connecting dots for a long time. I just see value in people. I'm very intuitive, and I already look at how can I make their life better. And if we all did that, if we all kind of looked at each other and said, what can I do today? Because what happens, it comes back to you tenfold. And I know that there's books that share that in the books and stuff like that, but you have to live it. It's a consciousness. And so I didn't know I was a connector. I thought everybody did what I do. And then I found that wasn't true as I grew up. But I've been conscious about it, about connecting. In fact, every month I look at meeting 10 new people a month. That's my goal. And I go out purposely and I do meet 10 new people a month. Now I'm meeting them because I want to meet them, but I meet them for other people.
Yeah.
Like if I want to be a master connector, I have to be conscious about it. And can you imagine if everyone thought like that, how, we wouldn't have to worry about the conflicts because everybody's looking out for each other.
That is so true. If we all gave forward, we would be in such a more pleasant place, like the whole of the world, I would say.
Yeah.
I feel the conversation should not be about you do something for me, so I do something for you, but about, okay, I'll do something for you, and then you can do something for the next person.
Yes, yeah, pass it forward.
Pass it forward, it goes through a circle, and maybe sometime later in 10 years, the person that you helped today, through all of those connections, like 10th handshake, 11th handshake, that person will help you out somehow.
Yeah.
Because it all went into this very beautiful spiral.
Exactly. And I've kind of taken it to the next level. And people think I'm crazy. But I look at opportunity. I see connections as opportunity. Opportunity to make people feel really special. So for 28 years, when a newborn baby is born in Calgary, I don't know them. Maybe I know them. It doesn't matter. I bring them cowboy boots as a gift. And because welcome to Calgary. And people think I'm crazy because it's expensive. Like it's like I don't think about the money. I think about the opportunity for the experience. Yeah. And guess what? They never throw those cowboy boots away because it's treasured. Yeah. But that's their welcome to Calgary because they've come from other places or they maybe lived here, born here. It doesn't matter. But a baby that's born in this city or this province, they have to have their first pair of cowboy boots.
Oh yeah, I still remember me getting my first pair of cowboy boots. Honestly, when I moved to the city and people were talking to me about, you have to go to Stampede and dressed as a cowboy, I was surprised and I thought people were making fun of me. But then I found out that this is a thing and of course now I have all the necessary equipment, as to speak. But I did have another question for you. So we talked about your experiences and we talked a bit about your values. But I want to ask you, how has helping others shaped you or how has it impacted you as a person?
Well, I think that celebration a couple of weeks ago was mind-blowing because when you're in the moment and you don't have an agenda, you don't really see what you're doing. You're not keeping track. You're not keeping score. Well, I've done this for you. You should do that for me. I'm just free at just being that person. And so it has come to me tenfold. It's supported my practice for 28 years and I'm the product. So I can't walk down 8th Avenue wearing a sandwich board, hire me. Yeah. So it's all come back to me tenfold. I don't take it for granted, but I know I'm delivering, I'm exceeding expectations. So the word gets out there and the majority of my business has been referral because that's my brand. When people know me, they know they can count on me being generous. And not generous where they take advantage, but they know that I'm caring and I'm being creative. The other thing, I'm always thinking of new things to do to get people excited. Yeah. I live in a vortex of excitement because everything I see is exciting. Yeah. And I don't know how to teach that. It's something you decide to be, is excited about things.
Excitement is not a skill, it's a position of time. If you live life excitingly and you're open and curious, it will give you joy living this life. Yeah. But if you find nothing exciting, then you're just going through time. You're not living life anymore.
Yeah, and I think being adventurous, like coming to Calgary or coming to Canada, I think it's a responsibility to know Canada. You know, Canadians don't even know Canada. Their generations have been here for years. You know, this is our country. I believe we're provincialists. We're not nationalists. We want to be nationalists, but we're not. We're definitely provincialists. But even at that, you know, I know people have never been to Banff and they live in Calgary. So we have a responsibility to know Canada, to know our culture, to know our history. And it's very exciting. And once you know, you feel more familiar, you feel like you fit in. And it's like this summer for new immigrants to go on, you know, to go to the parks, like to go on picnics, like to explore. And the more they explore, the more they have to talk about to others and even their own cultural groups. You know, like, wow, have you been to, Bow Falls? You know, things, small things that don't cost money, just to explore.
Exploring, learning the culture, being part, assimilating is important. And I like how you talked about responsibility, because we talked about a bit about accepting new immigrants. But what would you say is their responsibility to be accepted by the locals?
Yeah, I think they have to merge. Like if one thing about Canada, people can just take their country and come here and keep their country going here. And that's fine, because I mean, that's their choice. But if you went to Russia, you couldn't, just be yourself and be Canadian in Russia. You'd have to assimilate in their culture. Like it's every other country in the world, you have to assimilate to the culture. Whether you like it or not, you have no choice. So I think there's a responsibility of really taking it all in. If you want to come here, if you think this is the land of milk and honey and there's opportunity here, then we have to respect all of it and each other and all different cultures, because we are multicultural. We've been multicultural for a long time.
Yes.
But I think, media doesn't help. And I think when people don't know how to integrate with each other, it causes separation.
Yes. Integration and the ability to learn from each other, assimilation, as I mentioned earlier, those very important tools.
Yeah.
But let's take it a notch back. You mentioned about brand, having a personal brand. Mm-hmm. And I find that, we're all like people work for an organization and they kind of take the organization's brand upon themselves and they become part of that.
Yeah.
But how do you go beyond that and build your own brand so that people know you not just a person who works for such and such company, but knows you as a person, as an expert, as a human being?
Yes, I'm, a fanatic about your personal brand, because you're not your job. Yeah. You're not the company. And you'll go to a networking event and everybody talks about what they do. I always say what you should say is who you are. It's very difficult to make that transition in your mind. But it's practice, because it's who you are that people are attracted to, not what you do. Yeah. But we're in a culture that, it's just habit, where I'm a banker, I'm a financial planner, I'm a contractor. Well, who cares? That's not exciting. but I've just written a poem last night. Can I read it to you? That type of thing. Like, what's your brand? Like, what gets you up in the morning? What makes you who you are? And I think we got a long way to go to really incorporate that. I'm doing my best, because I do a portfolio versus a resume. And what I do is I capture who you are in the portfolio. And then I also capture the other thing you need to consider is your own intellectual property. And it's how you think and what you want others to know about you. And you do such a good job of that, bringing your culture from your country, educating us on your culture. And I've had the privilege of learning about your culture, and I love it. I love how what you do. Drink your tea. You're giving me little nuggets of things. So I feel like if I went over to your country, I would fit right in. Even though I don't speak the language. And those apps now, I can't wait for your father to come over, because I've got the app, so I'll be able to understand what he's saying.
Well, I think my mother is next in line to come in.
Wow,
yeah, they come in turns.
Yeah.
Like they do take care of my grandmother. But hopefully when she does, I would love to introduce you. But yeah, I like how you are talking about building your own portfolio.
Yeah.
And when you build your own portfolio, what do you think should be a couple of key points to include there? And not to give all your IP away, but maybe give some suggestions to the people listening to us.
Well, if you could visualize a folder, 8.5 by 11, the first page is a picture that depicts you. Mm-hmm. So maybe you do cultural dance. Like I have a friend who's Greek, and she's going to be in a Greek event on Saturday, and she does Greek dancing. So that would be how she would, show who she is on the cover. So it's really what you're proud of, what you want other people to know, and it starts a conversation. Yeah. And people don't know what countries you're from. Like there's such a maze of different people in our country now. We can't keep up with the different countries they're from, the different languages they speak. Like we're kind of in the dark. So on our side of the page, we need to take responsibility to ask the right questions, create curiosity, and ignorance is something I want to, eradicate. Because I think that's what's holding everything back, is that no one wants to take the first step in being curious and learning. And I think that's what we need to do in order to start a brand. Because sometimes you don't have to know your brand. Other people will listen and they will see your brand. Because we don't think like that. We don't think brand. But they'll say, wow, that person, really cares about their community. They're teaching people how to speak English, and they're helping them to integrate. That's a brand. That helping others is a brand.
Yeah.
And
I find that also to the point of curiosity, is that ego can sometimes get in the way of curiosity, because it's the same as let's say a couple had a little fight and there's ego. They're like, he should come and apologize, or she should come and apologize, or like all those kind of things. And the same thing I find here in terms of curiosity is like, oh, that person should be first, or and the other person thinks they should be first. And the ego gets a bit in the way.
Yes.
Right? So you take it away and become a little bit more humble in a sense.
Yes.
And build that curiosity, then you will be so much more open to the world, and the world will then be open to you.
Yes. Well, I think what the other thing besides ignorance that people struggle with is self-confidence. People are confident in some things, but they're not confident in all things. And I think that their self-confidence, they don't want to fail. They don't want to be rejected. They don't know how to take the first step. They don't know how to even say sorry. They're caught in their own mental web of it's all made up in their own minds. And that's the barrier for many, many people is their fear of maybe saying the wrong thing or not being accepted. And I think that's a lifelong work to overcome that. Because it really doesn't matter what other people think. It matters what you think.
Yes. Who cares about other people's thoughts and what they say about you?
Yeah.
As long as you know who you are and you have your own place and self-confidence in the world.
Yes.
But that brings us to the point of nomads.
Yes.
Have you ever felt yourself as a nomad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you tell a little bit about that?
Well, I'm kind of the black sheep of the family. I'm definitely don't fit into my family. I think I was switched at birth. Because if you met my family and you knew me, you go, what? That doesn't line up. My mother had an address book, and the whole address book was all the places I lived and the new addresses. She couldn't keep up. And they still have it. My mother's since passed, but my sister has the address book. And I saw it the other time I was in visiting them, and I went, holy man. So whenever there's opportunity, I would show up. So Montreal, I had an opportunity, so I moved to Montreal. There was an opportunity in Texas. I moved to Texas. So I've been, and then I moved from Toronto to Calgary. So I've been very nomadic.
And what made you choose Calgary then as your kind of more of a setup place?
Yeah, well, it was actually destined. It was divinely guided, for sure. because I met my husband in Toronto, and he was from Calgary, and that's why I ended up here.
Oh.
Yeah, if I hadn't met him, I probably never would be here.
We continuing to travel the world. We wouldn't have never met as well. So you see how it all intertwined. All is intertwined. But let's talk a little bit about advice. If you were to talk to your younger self today and have a conversation, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, one thing that I regret, because I've met a lot of people, and pre-internet where you didn't have email addresses and stuff like that, I've missed out by not keeping people's contact info. Every single person you meet, because there's no accident you're meeting them. I'm convinced of that. And if people were to see that it isn't random, there is something happening that you may not see in the moment. So that's one thing that if I had access to all the people, because I was a professional speaker for 3 years, and I spoke to thousands of people across North America, and I don't have their information. And I regret not having it because they were amazing people. I don't even remember their names. So the advice I'd give is, to collect every single person, not necessarily on social media, but somewhere, in your contacts that you can, because you never know when you're going to bump into them again, or there's reason to reconnect.
And that's a very good point. And I'll take a moment here and speak to the camera, because if you're listening and you have met Jan before and were at her events when she was traveling North America and speaking, and you see this podcast and you say, oh my God, I remember Jan, reach out to us and let us connect you with her. It would be, you never know, right?
You never know.
You never know.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Because that's my one regret. Yeah, is not collecting, and even at school, you kind of move on. And it's very vital to keep in touch with people. You have quite a collection, from where you come from, and here in Canada, like you've kept in touch with your people.
Trying to, but the brain has only so much capacity, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, but yours is gigantic.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
There's a lot in that brain.
And now I lost my train of thought. But thank you for that compliment. But in terms of keeping in touch and remembering people, would you give some advice on that front as well, in terms of how should a person that is trying to build their network, or maybe has a significant network, but kind of the network is sporadic, how that should be made more concise, more to the point?
Well, I think, first of all, you're not, I'd like to know everybody because I had a personal connection with them when I was speaking, right? So it was different than just random. We spent 3 days together and did magnificent things. So from that reverence of that is what I regret. But I think you have to be discerning. If you're reaching out and the person's not responding, you have to let them go.
Yeah.
You can't force a relationship. It has to be organic. There has to be a reciprocation. But one thing you can do is you could have people over for, barbecue or tea, like if you've met people, invite them. If they don't come, then you put them on the other side of your, the people you really want to spend time with. You have to test the people. You have to test to see if they really are sincere and they really want to know you. Because a lot of people pretend that they care, but we need evidence that they care. And I've been fortunate. Everyone I know cares. Every single person I've met has cared, because that's the kind of people I want. I want people who are generous. I want people who are wanting to meet new people. I don't want people that are just sitting around like wallflowers. They have to be engaging. So I've made a conscious choice of who I want to meet. So each person has to decide, what kind of person do you want to meet? You'll be amazed at who you attract. And I could tell some other things that I do, but I would be giving away my IP.
Of course. Yeah, no, that's fair.
I'm only kidding, but I do have some other ways to disseminate, and very powerful tools I've delivered or developed.
Well, I've been at some of your trainings and I know how you do it and the thought process behind it. And like you said, like, we're not giving your IP away, but definitely testing people is important.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to find the ones who are sincere and the ones who are not sincere, and more of trying to utilize a person. And we see all those kinds of people, right? Like, this is part of the world.
Yeah.
That we all live in. So
yeah, and it's just what people, it's not to judge. It's not about judging. It's about alignment. And you're looking for people who are generous. In order to find people who are generous, you need to be generous because they can't see you.
Yep.
There has to be this energetic connection of generosity. And generosity is just remembering their names. I mean, today, people's names, oh my goodness, it's really hard. They got the whole alphabet in their names. That's difficult. And I think, the people are proud of their names, but it's hard for a new person to understand their name because they don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
And so they could start with that. Hey, just call me O for short.
Yeah.
Because there's a way to join together that isn't going to be stress or complicated or embarrassing. Yep. It's really being conscious of how do I want to build the relationship.
100%. Like, I have people call me Sam, I have people call me Samir, depending on the circumstances. There's a couple of other terms from back home that my mom uses, but that's strictly for her. But also I want to make a point here about generosity, because when you talk about generosity, it's not about being generous with your money.
No.
It's being generous with your, should I say, soul?
Yeah, with your soul. Yes. It's a consciousness.
Yeah.
And it comes back. You can't have any attachment to it. You just are that. That's a brand.
Yeah.
It's who you want to be. If you want to be transactional, you're not going to make a lot of friends because it's all about you.
Yeah.
But if you go in with genuine care, like opening a door, I always think, how can if you know a lot of people, you have a responsibility to open a door. And that's one thing that I built in my network is when I call, people know that I've done my due diligence with the person and they're going to open the door.
Yeah.
And that's a goal. That's how you want to be seen in the community. And it's a choice. You can't take a course on it. It's something you just choose to do. And it could be opening the door about anything, about a restaurant, about food, inviting them for lunch at your house. I've been to many immigrants for lunch and had their cuisine, and new Canadians, and I'm fascinated how much food they eat, and they're still skinny. That's what amazes me.
Well, some cultures definitely love their food. We are a foodie culture. I am traveling back home later in the summer, and now I'm going to get a couple of extra kilograms just from the consumption of food. But talking about New Canadians, so this is part of some of the events that you do.
Yes.
And what inspired you to do those New Calgarian and New Canadian events?
Yeah. Well, I, when I came to Calgary, they rolled out the red carpet for me. They treated me like I was a celebrity. I was blown away. Like I thought, I'm a nobody really. Like I didn't have any, didn't have a brand. I was, very young and these people are so generous and so kind. So I wanted to pay it forward. So I decided, because I'm in the business of developing executives, and what that means is that how I see executives is developing an executive mindset. So I look at people who have capabilities in being executive, and then I teach them to be an executive, and then I find them jobs. And I have in my network, because they trust me that I'm bringing someone. They could never get an executive job otherwise, because it's not on their resume. Everybody's looking at what have you done, not what you can do. And I'm always saying, this is what they can do, not what they've done. And so what I do is I have a New Calgarian event where when new executives come to town, I host a dinner in their honor. And so these are strangers to me. I write them a gracious letter. Welcome to Calgary. I'm having a dinner in your honor. If you and your significant other would like to participate, I'm going to fill the room with people you need to know. And please reply if this is of interest to you. Well, they phone me right away. And you're doing what? You're having a dinner in my honor? And sure enough, I'm having one in the fall. The CEO of the Calgary Zoo is going to be my next new Calgarian. And he comes from Europe, I believe. And so I'm constantly honoring new Calgarians. And then when somebody actually becomes a Canadian, I have to celebrate that too. So I'm not looking for these people. This is what I learned from other people, because I'm not in the event planning business, but I'm in the connecting business.
Yeah. And you did a celebration for myself as well, like a couple of years back when I became a new Canadian too, right? So, no, I completely see that. And I love how you bring those people together. And I do appreciate the point where, how do you make sure that someone sees your future and not look at your past? Because maybe you didn't have that executive experience before, or maybe you had it, but in a different part of the world. How do you bridge it?
Yeah.
I think that's also another thing that you do, right?
Yes. Well, it's really looking at the person's value. Like, one of the things people, because we have a world that is so linear, unless you've done something, you're not worthy, right? And even people who have titles aren't doing their job. Like, just because you have a title doesn't mean you're a CEO. You know what I mean? Like, we put titles as the only identification of value. Yeah. And what I do is I already see the value in a person. They may not see it in themselves. The minute I see it, I can develop it and nurture it so that it becomes visible and they own it. They actually start to see their own value. Then once they see their own value, then what do? How do we get them seen by others? And it's all about relationships. Once they start to build a network and people see their value, they start to want to, see what they can do. Can they fit them in their company, or do they know another company that could use their expertise? Yeah. And I've been very successful at it because it's very intentional and very strategic. But it's all about confidence. The person has to grow their confidence, because you can't just give it to them and say, get in there and do the job as an executive. No, they have to be ready. Yeah. They have to be able to think like an executive. And that's what I'm more concerned with. And so I have a product called Develop an Executive Mindset. And even if you aren't an executive, you need to think like one in business.
Yes. And if you don't mind sharing that, what would be the key points in terms of becoming that executive? What are the main differences between an executive mindset and a non-executive mindset?
Well, first of all, being strategic. Mm-hmm. And you can't teach being strategic. You either are or you're not. But a lot of people are strategic in companies, but they're not allowed to be. They come up with new ideas, they bring them forward, and they're shut down. So then the person shuts down. Yeah. They're not gonna bring anything more. So that would be the first thing. How do we come into a place with new ideas, new ways of doing things? So it's a lot of, scenarios, before and after. This is what I came into. This is what I've solved. And once people can see the scenarios of how you think, so people need to know how you think, and it's something that it's very. We all think, but how do we send that forward for them to? Boy, I like how you think. Yeah. They might not be able to define it, but they like how you think. Mm-hmm. Like, I like how you think. Yeah. You have a unique way of seeing things. So that's what people need to look at. And then the minute they connect those dots, they get curious, and they want that in their company. They want somebody to not come in with ego, but to come in with that level of, think about it, because everyone's so caught inside the container. The minute you get out of the container, become an objective observer, you can start to see how to think differently. Mm-hmm. It's just a natural thing, but we're not given the opportunity.
Giving the opportunity is very important, I guess. I mean, I know a number of people that could have been great and more successful than where they are right now. Yeah. But it also depends on how do you define success. Because for some people, it's like where they're at, it's good.
Yeah.
Some people want of that, career progression. Some people say, okay, I have a family and I have my life work balance set up and feel successful. So it's all about your also definition of
Yeah.
success, like the person's definition of success. But I do feel that there's quite a bit of people who cannot articulate their values.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing. And I think, every human needs to have a plan to grow. You have to consciously know how to grow as a human because you're only here for a short time. So what does that mean for you? Is it learning another language? Is it travel? Like what identifies growth? Personal and professional growth. So what we do in our culture is that we get a job, we make a lot of money, and we never grow. We just stay there. We're stagnant. And then we retire. And what have we left behind? So we need to have a conscious choice of wanting to grow. And wanting to grow hurts. It's a challenge. It comes in so many forms. It could be athletic, it could be running, it could be whatever speaks to you. But it's movement towards something.
Yeah.
It's growth.
There's a saying back home that, and I love different sayings, but the saying is that if you want to grow, don't get sad when you get watered.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it, because like for a plant to grow, it needs to be watered. And the same thing for a person. If a person wants to grow as a human, and as an individual, they have to be able to go through some of those challenges, step out of their shelter or their shell. So,
yes. Yeah. Well, a lot of people grow through education, but there has to be purpose in the education. People take MBAs, but what are you doing it for? Where are you going? So they don't have a roadmap of growth. They just have, I'll try that, I'll do this. But they don't have a plan where it all integrates and matters. Yeah. That's what's missing.
I feel like if you don't have a plan, you're like that little ball in the pinball machine.
Yes.
That wanders around with no particular goal at the end and will always be wandering around, going from one side of the pinball machine to the other side of the pinball machine. Yes. But when you have a map, when you have a goal, you're able to actually get a map for yourself. Yeah. But I think the biggest question is for the person to understand what is their ultimate goal, where they want to be, and not be afraid of where they can end up.
Yes. So in your culture, are goals really, taught? Like, are you taught in your culture to have goals?
We are not, I would say, taught about that because we're still reinventing our culture.
Okay.
Going from being... Well, we were part of the Soviet Union for such a long time. Yes. And we kind of had our independence for only nearly 30 years. But for a country to have independence for 30 years is a very short period of time. So finding a culture of what we are going to be takes time.
Right.
So I wouldn't say that goals are learned per se, because usually what will happen, like let's say in the Soviet times, is that you would have the party plan. That this is what you need to achieve, and who can achieve those kind of targets, like the 5-year plan type of things. Mm-hmm. So people are reinventing, and some people are more successful in adapting to the new realities, and some people are finding it more challenging to be part of the new world, as to speak.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because it's something we talk about, but is it integrated in different cultures? It's definitely, Canadians, it's not so much. They just get a job, get married, buy a house, and retire.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah. And Jan, maybe just one last thing. I want to leave the audience with something to think about, something to digest after this conversation. Maybe you can share a piece of wisdom, some motivation, or maybe a story that will trigger people to action or bring them some hope.
Yeah, well, I have so many. It's, I think, for people coming to Canada or anyone just, moving from one city to the next, it's getting involved. Like, one of the things that, every city, every place needs is volunteers. To volunteer. When we had the Olympics in 1988, the reason why it was so successful was the thousands of volunteers that gave up their work and holidays to make sure the Olympics were like a stellar success. So when you if you're feeling uncomfortable, or you're shy, or you're don't have the confidence to really step out, it's really how can I inch out? And inching out would be, maybe your neighborhood you're living in. Maybe there's something happening that in the neighborhood that you could be part of as a volunteer. And by volunteering, you're giving back, but you're also meeting new people. But it's not as ceremonious as a networking event. It's not as scary, but it's just being neighborly. And you can start with your neighbors. I've been in Calgary a long time, and I can tell you, I lived in a lot of areas, and the neighbors are not neighborly. I've had to be neighborly to get them to be neighborly. So I think it's like to really, instead of jumping in, I think inching in. Inching in, and then you start inching more, and then people start to get to know you, and they start to trust, because relationships are all about trust. And so your responsibility is to build trust with them. And if they don't trust you, you have to let them go.
And I love that you brought up volunteering, because this is something very Canadian. The culture of giving back to the community, taking time off your busy schedule to go and help people, participate in different activities without asking for anything in return. I think it's such a very good way, as you said, not just to get to know new people, but a way to give back to the community and become part of the community.
Yes.
Such an easy way.
Yeah.
It's not as scary as you said to go and networking can be scary.
Yeah.
But if you're having an activity and during the activity you talk, you chat, you have some fun, you meet new people, it's an amazing part of the culture here in Canada.
Yeah, it's like a thread that weaves everyone together. But one thing that I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary that was quite funny was years ago, where this fellow did a documentary in the Middle East to go and find Osama bin Laden. And he went through all the villages, and he would ask the people, "Where is Osama bin Laden?" And they would point to the hills and kill themselves laughing because this guy was trying to find him to interview him. And what he did, he actually went and got to know their culture. He ate meals with them. And he was said, what matters to you? What matters to you in your family? He said, all we want is for our children to have a better life. And I think that's what joins all of us as humans, is that parents want a better life for their children, and that bonds us.
And that's a very great way to end this conversation, because we went through a full loop, getting back to the common values. We may seem different. We may have different meals that we eat during the day, but at the end of the day, what matters most to a lot of people is family, safetyness, and having some good food on the table.
Yes.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you for volunteering your time and being here today.
Oh,
I appreciate
wonderful.
this conversation. Really,
Okay.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you.